everyone. Welcome to the table. It is noon on Tuesday, the 27th. And my name is Barbie Winterbottom. Thank you for joining us today. Before I introduce our amazing Rockstar A-team, just a couple of housekeeping items. So we're broadcasting live through LinkedIn Live, which the tool I use for that is called StreamYard. And StreamYard is pushing this out to LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. If you're joining us and you have a question or a comment to share, please do so in the chat. I won't be able to respond to you in the chat, but what I will do is show your comments or questions on the screen, just like I did with Anna's comment. So every one of us loves to hear your questions, loves your comments. It makes the conversation really engaging. So we encourage everyone who's watching to definitely engage with us through the chat function. We just can't respond to you. I can't respond to you through the actual chat. I think Anna can because she has a second screen up. So just want to throw that out there. So now let me introduce my amazing panel of wonderful talent acquisition, leadership women who I am so incredibly grateful to have here. And did I introduce myself? The way today my brain is going right now. I think I did. So I'm just going to start. To my right is Andi Cook. Andi is joining us from the great state of Texas, and Andi has a business where she helps folks with their resumes, their job search. She is an absolute expert with data and ATS systems and how they work and the intricacies. And what I love about this panel is it is a group of women, first of all, which always makes me happy, but they're real experts, guys. These people, including myself, I will say this, we have actual experience and credibility in talent acquisition and recruiting, both agency and in-house, corporate, consulting, like the whole deal. So the information that we're sharing with you today is legitimate. We're not doing it as clickbait for followers. We're not doing it so that we can have crazy vanity metrics. We are doing it because we actually care. And this is what we do for a living. So I just want to also throw that out there because that is what inspired me to invite these ladies to join me today. Also joining us is Anna Morgan. Anna is also out in the great state of Texas, although Anna used to be in the great state of Florida with me. And I wish you would come back because...
Well, I visit regularly, but I'm actually out of Atlanta. So I have a huge community in Andy's neck of the woods, but I'm a Georgia peach, born and raised.
Yes, you look peachy. I love that.
Thank you.
That. And last but not least is the amazing Amy Miller, who has quite a track record of phenomenal recruiting experience. I absolutely adore Amy's videos, and that's how we connected because, like me, she has a propensity to call out the BS she sees on LinkedIn, and I love it. And I love her tagline, "Recruiting in yoga pants," because
yes, I was like, I don't know Amy, but we are kindred spirits because I recruit in yoga pants every day, all day. I mean, I have my red top on, but yoga pants on the bottom.
Yeah, of course. Well, and just so that everybody knows, because obviously my setup is a little different here. I'm sitting on the floor. I have one of those electronic desks, and for some reason it went haywire on me just a minute ago, and it dropped itself all the way to the floor. And so I'm on the floor. But hey, we improvise, right? We do what we need to do. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to try to throw as many of these comments out and welcomes out. I don't have a script for our conversation today. I didn't even prep the ladies with questions because there's just so much. There's so much. We don't need a script because we could probably just round table all the ridiculousness that we continue to see and be here for days.
We're like the job search improv crew.
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
I love it. Our guests may not be having fun, but the four of us are. Right? That's awesome.
We are a traveling party.
Yeah. I love it.
I'm still planning like a road trip to come see all of the amazing friends that I've made on LinkedIn in the last couple of years. So it's going to happen eventually.
We could just go on tour.
I was just thinking we could get an RV and have like a career search roadshow. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Investors, yes.
I love it.
I can take all of you like under the Job Search Angels. We can get like a Job Search Angels branded Winnebago. We can do live shows. I mean, get ready, world. It's happening.
Yes, it's happening. And I happen to know a professional driver. He drives for musicians and bands and famous country music stars, and I could hook us up. Hello, Desmond Clark. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen or heard from you in years. Thank you for being here. Mwah, mwah, mwah. All right, guys. So let's just kind of jump into questions. So I'm going to just round table with you guys first. And since we started with Andi, I'm going to start with Amy. Amy, what is one thing that you have seen recently on some sort of social media platform that has just sent you into orbit because it's crap? Let's just call it what it is.
Oh gosh, just one, Barbie? Oh, you're making it hard.
Well, we'll do more, but let's just start with one. I want to prep everybody to say, we really do care. And the reason we're doing this, and we're making light of it and we're having fun because we have to. But the reality is, after my most recent post about some of this, I can't even tell you how many people direct message me to say, like, I got sucked in to, there's one particular person, I paid this person money and it harmed my career. I lost 3 job opportunities because I followed this bad advice. Like, I'm getting message after message after message from people who have said, thank you, because I followed this bad advice and it's damaging people. So that really is why we're doing this. We really, really do care. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun while we're doing it. So with that, let's jump in.
No, I'm with you, Barbie. And I've taken those calls with job seekers just in tears because, you know, they did something that cost them an opportunity, or they invested money that they don't have, especially during a pandemic, into some of this shady stuff. So yeah, but also I think it's important to caveat that we are here to call out content, not people. We are calling out specific words, specific bad advice. It's not personal. It's not, I don't like that guy. I mean, I probably don't, but that's not the point. But I think the one that stands out, and you referenced this in your post, Barbie, is that a thank you note makes you look desperate. I had about 47 aneurysms reading that. I'm telling you right now. I'm a long time recruiter, over 20 years. I was in agency for about half of that time. And I have every handwritten thank you note I've ever received since 1998.
Me too.
I've kept them because it's just, you know what I mean? I tried to go find them before my last video but it's in a box somewhere in the garage. My husband's like, don't you touch anything. But, you know, I have them. And I remember that feeling, like I got, you know, goosebumps just talking about it. Like, just, it didn't make a difference whether or not they got the job, right? Because you get the job on the merits of your abilities and able to do the job, right? But it was just that human connection. And for somebody to try to take that away from people, like, who are you and what's wrong with you?
I love that you said that, because one of the things about those particular types of posts that really just sends me into orbit is when you're, especially during the pandemic, right? Millions of people impacted with job loss, myself included. And even though I know it had nothing to do with my performance, it had nothing to do with any of that. When you lose a job, there is a shame that is associated with that. I don't care who you are, right? It does not matter who you are. And people can say, oh no, I walked out and I lit the match as I walked out. No, because if you didn't feel that, you wouldn't care, right? The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And when you're apathetic, you don't have any emotions about it. So when you're then taking this type of platform to additionally shame people by saying something makes you look desperate, why would you add to someone's already heightened, like, emotional state And instead of creating something that lifts them up to say, here's some great things you can do that will help you with X, Y, and Z. So that's what really just makes me crazy, is when we see these posts out there and we're trying to shame people into clicking to build our following when we don't really even have experience or knowledge about the topic. And so
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think Amy hit on a key point. It's about that human connection, right? And job searching is an exercise in sales. And we are saleswomen, if we think about it, in recruiting, in our coaching businesses. And so it's just an additional touch point. And it's also making it that the recruiter is a human being as well, right? Because you never know where that recruiter or talent act person may go. For example, Barbie and I connected might have been as early as 2003. Either I called on her as a hiring manager or she came to me as a candidate because I used to work with HR people. And so the fact that we've been able to maintain that connection, follow each other's career, it's just like the Steve Jobs quote: we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking backwards. So we have to trust in destiny, karma, intuition, that these relationships, these touch points that we're making are going to come together at some point in our career. And I think we can all mutually agree that LinkedIn is a marathon. It is not necessarily a sprint. Some people can catch lightning in a bottle and, get all the fame and whatever, but it is a relationship-based kind of marathon, in my opinion. It's about giving to others and nourishing those relationships, because that one thank you note, to Amy's point, like, I remember those people. I remember the employee that dropped off a Starbucks gift card once he started at the company, or the fruit basket that I got, or even just notes from people that I didn't place, but really enjoyed working with me and want to stay top of mind for future opportunities, which is key.
Love it.
Well, who doesn't like to receive a thank you note, just in general? Right? In general, whether it's a job search or you gave someone a gift or you did something kind, it's just, I think you nailed it. It's human connection. And
I want to piggyback on this a little bit. And how sadistic do we think people are that they're going to be like, you know what, I was going to hire you, but obviously you want this job. I'm not going to. Like, most people are not that playground about their hiring process. So what people don't want, as far as hiring managers, they don't want you to walk in and say, you should hire me because I want a job, right? That's not what we're going for. They hire you because you solve problems. But when you think about that thank you note, sometimes your instant gratification isn't right now. You're not going to get this crying thank you of, that meant so much to me. But you're building this relationship. And what you want is, even if you don't get this opportunity, you want to be the first person they call if it opens back up. If they expand the team again, if there's a different opportunity that may be a better fit, you're building these long-term relationships, and these personal touches that you do are about your brand. So even if you don't see the instant reward right now, long-term, you're establishing yourself as a professional. Don't do it for a response. Do it because it's a furthering of your brand.
100%. I love that.
I love that, Andi. And I would also say, and I think, Amy, you said this when you made your video, I've worked with hiring managers and recruiting folks, right? Because you want your recruiter to be your advocate. Let's talk about that in a minute, but your recruiter should be your advocate. And when you're down to maybe 2 final candidates and they're equally qualified, they're equally, whatever experience, criteria, all that kind of thing, that thank you note has actually put people over the top and been one of the anchors to their hiring, because they did that. They took that extra step, they went that extra mile, and they made that human connection, right? Absolutely. Now, I will say, when I coach people around writing thank you notes, one of the keys is to make it personal, right? To try to put something in that note about your interview experience, or if they shared a personal story with you during the interview, or if they shared something, or you noticed something in their office, or whatever it is that will make them remember you, when you were there, right? There is kind of a strategy to the thank you note if you spend the time to do that. And it really has changed hiring decisions for the better. I've never heard anybody say, I'm not going to hire them because they sent me a thank you note.
Never.
Exactly. And to Andy's point, like building your brand, when job seekers really nail like who they are, who they help, the transformation they can provide, and they have kind of that headline or that 1-minute pitch, and they're using that language in their resume, in their profile, in their follow-up language, that helps it land in the recruiter's body so that we remember them in good favor, right, for other positions. And it makes a good impression, and it makes it easy on the candidate. So doing that work up front and really owning all of that about your experience and being able to articulate those peak career moments, you're selling in that thank you note too. That's what's going to separate you from the person that didn't send the thank you note, or it's just going to drive home the transformation that you can provide for the organization.
Yes, I love that. And I learned something myself through my own experience recently, and I've read several other folks posting things like this. When you're in sales, right? And as Anna said, in a way, we're all in sales, and you get that rejection, right? I was working with a new client. I sent them a proposal, and they came back and they're like, well, we were thinking our budget was half of this. And I'm like, okay, no harm, no foul. Thank you. But this is what I charge for X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And you guys are great. I think you're wonderful. If you have any other questions for me, let me know. I'm always here. But I was okay. And because of the way I responded, and I wasn't like, well, screw you, you don't want to pay me what I'm asking, they ended up calling me back and saying, you know what, we thought about it. We love how you interacted with us, and we do want to hire you, right? So if you think about a thank you note in the same way, even if you don't get the job, it's an okay thing to send a thank you note. Thank you for a positive experience, because as you guys all said, the next time there's something open, or maybe that candidate falls through and the job is still open, that positive impression is going to matter.
Totally.
So I love, you guys are amazing. Okay.
David has a good question. I think it's for Amy.
Oh, I know, David.
Hi, David.
David.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think email's fine in that case, David, right? Because you could probably find someone's address if you tried.
If you're a recruiter and you're just FBI agent on the side, because that's what we are.
we can find a lot of information, and hopefully most of us are using our powers for good. But no, I think email's totally fine. I think there is a risk in that. There's another creepy stuff that also bugged me on the internet recently. Maybe we'll get into later. But I think there is that fine line between, being kind of overtly like in someone's face and chasing them down and sending them, your resume stapled to a donut box to their house. Like, that's a little overkill for me. But I think an email is fine. I haven't seen a handwritten thank you note in years, but I get them all the time over email. And I have what I call a feel-good folder. I learned that from my friend Katrina, that I put all those emails in. And when I'm having a bad day, I go back and read them, and just, it feels good.
That's so smart.
I've actually seen someone disqualified for contacting somebody at home. So be very cautious in that. It really scared this particular HR professional, and she felt violated. She felt like it was completely outside of business professional etiquette. And so I can see that. I would never advise it, only because we do live in such a crazy world that there's a lot of scam. There's a lot of fraud. That just be above reproach. Yeah. And I would rather see you go with an electronic note, or even, a scanned in copy of your handwritten note before I would have you send it to their house.
That's what Shannon just commented. She's like, again, take a picture and send it in the email. I love that. That's great. Any kind of personal touch you can put on it, I think makes a big difference. So great.
You can get so many cues of what people are into. Like, I promise you, if you send me dog pictures, we are besties immediately, right? Like, I am so public about my dogs, and
we're kindred spirits, Amy.
So if you think, it's easy to pick up on those very obvious public cues and leverage that. I don't think there's any problem at all. I had to leave my door cracked because I'm going to have a dog coming in and out any minute now, I'm sure. So,
Andy,
if it's publicly available on the internet, it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've got cats and dogs, and because I'm on the floor, they're like, "Oh, it's playtime."
Hey, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's move on from thank you notes. Some great comments here. I love this one, Steph. Yeah, don't send stuff to someone's house. Got it. Right.
Hi, Steph.
Personal relationship only. Okay. So, Andi, what is your crazy thing that you've seen that sends you, into orbit when you see it online?
So any of the people who are on calls with me know they're probably saying it in the comments right now.
I know what it is. Go ahead.
Hidden job market.
Hidden job market.
Well, so it's the way that the phrase is used, right? Do I believe that there are jobs that are not posted out there? Absolutely, right? There are. But how it's used of pay me $1,000 and I'll send your resume to 400 hidden jobs. No, that is never in the history of forever has an HR professional said, hey, we have this really important role. Let's not post it anywhere and just see what happens, right? That's not how hiring works.
No.
So
even if it's confidential, somebody knows it exists.
Somebody knows about it. An executive firm has it. A recruiting agency has it. It's on their internal website. They're passing it around their internal employees for a recommendation. There are confidential searches, meaning somebody is probably being replaced that does not know they're being replaced yet. Maybe there's a confidential merger or acquisition that's happening. So there are some strategic, but usually those route through a very confidential search with an executive search firm. But the main reason I don't believe in the hidden job market is we use it to say jobs that are not advertised on job boards. That's not what it is. That's page 7 of Google. So if you go into Google and you type in whatever, like project manager jobs near me, go to page about 3, you're going to start seeing these corporate websites that are not advertised. And a lot of companies that have a really strong candidate pool don't pay advertising dollars because they have candidates looking. So take your search to Google, look on pages about 3 to 7, and you're going to see all these corporate sites. So look for in the URL something that says like jobs.verizon or careers.Dr. Pepper, whatever. And you're looking for those careers and job sites. That's your quote unquote hidden job market. Do not pay people for when there is not an actual deliverable, meaning I'm not going to show you evidence I sent your resume. I'm not going to copy you. I'm not going to give you updates. I'm just going to send it and expect you to pay me for it. That's arbitrary. Don't invest your limited job search dollars for something that somebody cannot promise what that deliverable is. So like if you pay me to deliver a resume, in return, you can expect to have a resume. If I say, just pay me this and I'll introduce you to quote unquote, I'm asking you to pay me to be your friend, and that's actually not a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, agreed. And just so that everybody's really clear, there is no like dark web hidden job market website. Because I've had people ask me that, like, is it hidden somewhere? And do you need like a code to? No, it doesn't.
So why would we have that? I think that would be my biggest question. Like, why would we do that?
Great question.
I'm not sure. I'm not really
Right.
sure. So to clarify, in case anybody is just joining, the hidden job market refers to jobs that are not obviously posted by an organization. Maybe they're confidential searches, or a lot of executive level, C-suite level positions are not usually, you're not going to find them on Indeed. You might find them on LinkedIn, depending on the type of role, but they usually use search firms or contract recruiters. And those are the people who end up posting the job or leveraging the network of people they've built over time and do direct sourcing and call into someone to say, hey, I know you have been, a VP of customer experience and you're looking for that next role. I just was informed that there's a COO position open. Let's talk about it, right? So it's not that the jobs exist. It's just that they're not posted in an obvious way, like a customer service rep for, Amazon might be, out there everywhere, right? You're going to see that on Indeed. You're going to see that on their website. You're going to see that everywhere. So it's not an actual place you go or you pay for. Please never pay for anybody who tells you they're going to get you into the hidden job market, because that's just BS.
And if you send me their name and number, I will contact them for you.
Andy's ready to throw down.
She's fired up. I love it.
I love it. I told everybody this was going to be feisty today. I told y'all. Excellent. All right. Any other questions? Does anybody have questions about the hidden job market before we move on? If you do, throw them into the chat and I'll throw them across the top. All right. Anna.
Okay. So let's see. So, I've been a recruiter for 15 plus years, started in agency recruiting and then got into talent acquisition. To your point, and kind of adding to your post, is that I just am constantly like, wow, there's a lot of advice coming from people that have never been in a position to hire. And I just wonder, because there's such trial by fire that happens as a recruiter and being a part of an agency or talent acquisition team. And, I think one of the reasons I'm a peak performer recruiter now is because I tripped and I fell and I made lots of mistakes probably early in my career, but I was always in the trenches working with talent, working with hiring managers, really understanding that perception of quality, doing the true partnership, right? The marrying of great talent with amazing organizations. And my heart goes out for people that have been looking for a long time and are consuming this content, because, there is that you have social credibility, right? By the content that you share and how you show up here on LinkedIn, and you can build a following and you can have a fan base. And some people can get, like a little fangirl around you when you meet someone in person, but we're just human beings, right? We're sharing our experience, strength, and hope based on the journey that we've had. And so I think it's important that job seekers really evaluate the coaches and experts that are sharing this content. Look at their profiles, look at their job history, look at their recommendations, because those things matter when you're taking this advice or even investing in a coach or an accountability partner. So
absolutely.
I totally agree. And I think one of the things I've noticed with a certain kind of coach, we've seen a lot of these come out of the woodwork since the pandemic. They've taken their personal experience and monetized it.
Yes, tons of
that. That doesn't work, because not everybody has a rich dad funding their education. Not everybody has fraternity brothers to lean on for referrals.
Right.
Yes. Not everybody has a certain amount of privilege or leverage. And a lot of these so-called coaches, I've gone and done the homework. I've researched their background. I've used my recruiter skills to see where this person actually came from. And guess what? They're starting on about the 17th rung, while you and I are down on 1 and 2. Don't pay for that, because that person has not lived your experience, and therefore what worked for them won't work for you.
Yeah, I think we all bring in life experiences to our coaching, but you're talking about a totally different experience. And I think it's also being kind of under the guise of the passion economy too, that we've all gone through this awakening and now we're doing all these different things. So, it's just buyer beware. I personally feel like you're really, especially with active recruiters, that with the way the talent teams are evolving. And Barbie, I think you're seeing a lot of this, that companies are in this like, oh crap place, because you have boomers and traditionalists like fleeing the workforce. There's not enough Gen Z or Gen X and Gen Z millennial to backfill the position. So leadership development, personal development are hot topics on talent teams. And then equanimity, right? Like making sure that we're out of the 1990s recruiting phase into more of this modern day recruiting aspect. And it's just a slippery slope. And it's kind of like everyone can be a digital marketer in some sense, as we've had this rise of, virtual coaching. But there is some legitimacy behind the experience and or certifications. Like, I don't worry that I don't have a coaching certificate because I have 20 years of recruiting experience at this point,
Well, and let's be real. You can get a coaching certificate in about 30 minutes online. Right. Online.
So I can put some fancy letters behind my name.
Andi dropped off. She must have lost her internet connection. I'm sure she will be back shortly. Just FYI, we didn't kick her off. I'm assuming she's got some sort of tech issue happening. So just everybody know that. When a lot of the work that has been coming my way recently has been from actually like global billion-dollar organizations. And what they're recognizing is that it's time to retool the entire end-to-end process, right? Attraction, selection, onboarding. Because and I know you guys are going to know this, but most organizations start at selection. The whole attraction piece just completely escapes them. It's the post and pray, and then they do like 500 rounds of interviews that last 6 months, and they lose their candidates. So, they're starting to realize that that's not working anymore.
And just employment branding in general. Like, I mean, I would love to hear, and leaders are reaching out to recruiters and saying, what are candidates asking for right now? Yeah. What is important to them? Are you all seeing that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I'm excited about is the opportunity to start making connections with my clients to say, these issues you're having over here with attrition, these issues you're having over here with like really weak leadership teams. If we dial this back, how did you select that person? And then looking at the values that anchor that organization. And let's start there. Let's start with what really matters to this company so that we can find people who are aligned with what really matters to this company.
Yes.
And then we can look at what are those behaviors, what are those values, and how do we integrate all of that to create that through line of experience. And a big surprise to everybody, but every person who's interviewing for a job is also a very sophisticated consumer. And they want a consumer-like experience in the interview process.
100%.
It is absolutely where all of this is moving. And so I love doing that work. It's exciting for me. And hopefully the end result will be that candidates have a better experience, right? That's the goal, is that even if they don't get the job, they're left with, wow, that was really great. And I'm going to keep watching that organization or, nurture that relationship from a long-term perspective. So, okay, let me just make sure Andi's not texting me. Yep, she did. Yep, internet crashed. Okay, she'll be right back.
Amy, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Amy, you've worked for Microsoft, Google, and are you with Amazon now? Is that right? I'd be interested to hear like any of their, more modern day recruiting practices, or like what you're seeing, or if it's, maybe a lot of the same that most of us experience.
I'm Googling because
they have the brand.
I've been there because I worked here too. I know where this is going.
And this is why I have this like love-hate with all things like ATS and bots and AI, because I have myself physically on a daily basis logged into ATSs. And they all have their own homegrown system, right? Like they'll sometimes take an off market, like an iSIMS or something, and kind of modify it to fit the purposes. Ladies, if I could tell you how much I put in Excel, I mean, if any company on the planet had some fancy AI robot, I'm going to eat your resume, it would be one of my current or previous employers, and we don't. And so there's also this mythology that, you work for this big brand, everybody wants to work at Google. I get that. I do understand that. I was one of those persons, once upon a time. But Google, Microsoft, any big company is going to probably have different different standards. So yeah, a lot of people want to work there, but does everyone have, let's look at like software engineers, for example, the amount of data that they're working with and the scale of the projects, that's sometimes hard to just step into. I actually took a big title cut to go to Microsoft because I had historically worked on smaller things and, kind of had to ramp up into a bigger organization. So, it's a lot of the same problems. I feel like nothing I do is different. I just have a lot more eyes on it because everyone looks at me and says, oh, look what that company said. No, not a company spokesperson.
Yes.
Well, and one of the things, another myth, let's just get to this one, is that an ATS.
Yeah, we had to wait for Andi to get back.
Not rejecting your resume.
It's
there
us.
There is no like way to quote unquote beat the ATS. If I see that one more time, I might literally like throw something out a window. Every resume that is being declined is either not looked at all, and unfortunately you were lumped in with, we already found somebody and you're being rejected, or somebody reviewed it and said, nope, not interested. It is not an automatic process that there's some system out there that's scanning it saying, oh, this one's good, this one's bad. Doesn't work that way. Andi,
the closest I've seen to automation, and this was at Microsoft, only company I've worked at that's used it, was what we called knockout questions, where you would have to answer certain questions based on basic qualifications. If you said no to those questions, then that was an auto reject because the system was set up by a recruiter to do that. I know I would often go into those rejected buckets just in case. Well, maybe the person hit the wrong button. Let me just make sure, if I didn't have enough pipeline already. So that's the closest I've seen. And again, at a billion-dollar company.
And I did the same thing when I was with Amazon, right? We would get a lot of people that would they would misread, I'm at least 18 years old.
Right.
And they would say no, because they would think that, the wording just threw them. So we would contact them and say, your birth date says this or whatever, but you said you're not 18. Let's, what have you. So I've seen that on occasion. Absolutely.
So most of the bigger name applicant tracking systems do have some automated features and auto routing features. They're just not used a lot. You can have some set criteria. So a lot of it happens if you've implemented an ATS, you've had to go through this skills database and you kind of establish Microsoft Word could also be called Word, could also be called whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like customer service could also be called client success. And you're kind of establishing this. So there are some tracking systems that have this kind of predefined skills or some cloud matching. What I have seen more in action is ranking based on kind of keywords. But what you have to remember about an applicant tracking system is it's computer code. It's that simple. So when we're talking about formats that work, what I did to determine the format that I use in 2021 is I actually pulled the backend code from 3 different code sources and reviewed the code. So I ran it through every way. I tested margins and underlines and all of these myths that are out there. And I went into the code because it's a computer system, meaning you have to speak in computer language. When a recruiter is searching for someone, we match nouns. We don't match verbs. So all of these like job scan, love it if you're using it to kind of say, oh, I've done that. But if you're trying to match word for word, you're going to drive yourself crazy and spend all these hours on something that you may not ever get a return on that investment. So I'm a fan of the ATS. About 40% of my clients land through ATS because it's a tool. Just know it's a law of numbers. So when you're applying through an ATS, you have about a 1 in 300 chance for hire, right? If you're going through an agency recruiter, that goes to 1 in 6. Do I want you doing both? Absolutely. It's not that one's not viable. Just don't spend 3 hours tailoring your resume when you have a 1 in 300 chance for hire. Use those words, talk about the nouns, but remember the only way we have as recruiters or a system to know whether you've done it is if you put the words on there. A computer's not intuitive. A lot of entry-level sourcers are not intuitive about this equals that. So you have to use your words and pull it out to say, I have done this, I achieved this, I accomplished this. So make sure that you get really granular in that. But when I read a resume that has like 3 bullet points on it, and we're talking about 15 years of experience, and I'm going, tell me more. Because and as a recruiter, I would have people tell me, well, if you get in front of the hiring manager, they'll know. You're never going to get to that point. Right. So there's some arrogance there. And when we start to value other people's time, then we really will start to look at it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to that, well, really quickly, Adrienne has a question for Amy about the reject questions related if you listen to the state.
I would not love that question, Adrienne, to be honest. I could see a situation where maybe if a company isn't providing relocation, or there's, some bona fide reason to be on site or in the territory, if it's a sales job or something, I mean, I could see it. Would I personally allow it? Absolutely not. That is a subjective question. Somebody could move on their own. Someone might have resources, history, family, friends, in said location. So it would not be an appropriate knockout question. I'll say that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
And some companies aren't set up to do business in all 50 states.
Sure.
So when I worked for a certain company, there were certain states that we couldn't even have a meeting in because that's considered doing business, and we were not set up to pay like employment taxes and all that kind of stuff. So, there are reasons why some companies don't have employees in certain areas, but it's typically not a knockout question. And to Amy's point, it's not a knockout question I would ever be comfortable with, because a lot of people think about it this way too. If college students, right, or even high school students, folks just coming out of maybe a parental home or a dorm or what have you, they may have like a permanent address, right? I know when I was in school, my permanent address was my mom, and I didn't live there, right? But that's what I always used as my formal address. So you don't even know that the address that is being used is where they're actually physically located. So it's not a relevant knockout question, put it that way.
Yeah. But I know, like, as a recruiter, a lot of times I have to tell people, like, we're starting to look at local talent first. And if we aren't able to find the right people, then we can consider remote talent at that point. But back to the ATS, I just wanted to hit on this briefly, just based on different seats in agency and now corporate. I feel like most organizations that buy an ATS, it's kind of like a second thought. So one, the computer language is not programmed to the sophistication necessarily that Andi's talking about. And then two, most organizations buy iSIMS, Workday, Salesforce, whatever, for more performance management, talent management, and HRIS type of functions versus the true applicant tracking piece, because they could be so much better, right? They could make recruiters' life so much better. For example, one of the systems, 2 recruiters in one organization cannot see a history with candidates. So they're only attached to requisitions. So there's no history. Wow. I might call someone and they're in a 3rd round interview with another department in the company, and you're like, how?
Yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Andi mentioned this, where it comes with a lot of cool features. How many of those cool features did IT let you turn on?
Exactly. Yes. Or they're not paying to have someone customize it in a way. They're just like, here, recruiters, like, do your best and work off of Excel.
100%.
And there's a difference in an applicant tracking system and recruiting software. So Bullhorn, for example, would solve that problem, but it doesn't have the payroll components that a lot of people are using, and the integrations that your UltiPros and your iSIMS, they kind of integrate. So a lot of times what's happening is you have these executive leaders kind of going, okay, well, here's what I want from it. Here's what I want. Instead of having one overall project manager going, hey, we could actually leverage this and and build this out to customize it. And it doesn't happen like that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right,
I
guys,
did want to say,
technical.
sorry.
Go
ahead.
I don't want to get too technical around this because folks who are watching may be job seekers and they're not going to understand any of this, and nor should they need to, right? So I do want to get back to kind of the myths that are out there that we want to make sure people are not believing. Amy, you had a video a week or so ago. I literally laughed out loud because it was just so great and just so to the point. And I'd never heard this before, but apparently there's a myth that if you want to match all the keywords on a job posting, to put them on your resume and then change the font to white so that they're not visible. And then you can type all the other stuff that is visible so it's not cluttered on the resume. I have never in my life ever heard this before, but apparently it's a thing that people believe.
It's called keyword stepping.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's so easy to detect.
Tiny white font trick. This was a bad idea. AOL told you this was a bad idea in 2010. You can Google it and read the same article I read.
The only good thing about white font is if you're messing with your financial department and you change all the text in their spreadsheet to white just to freak them out. That's the only good reason for white font. I'm just saying.
So this is what I have actually seen happen. Okay, that I have watched this unfold in various companies over the years. So I look at your resume and I see the actual context and history and accomplishments and say, yeah, this person fits the criteria, and we move them forward and they interview and they get hired. And I never knew that you pulled this tiny white font trick. And luckily that I didn't, because I probably would have rejected you based on that alone, because that's annoying and ridiculous. Okay, maybe I wouldn't, depending on the role. I would love to get 300 applicants for my jobs, by the way, just saying.
Well, I was going to say, 30. Applications are down.
Yeah, exactly. So that's number one. You skate through on your own merit. Nobody knows. And thank goodness nobody picked it up because it makes you look like a jerk. The second thing that happens is I'm reading the resume going, I don't see it. I know I need, I'll give you a relevant example. I need physics of failure reliability engineer. So I'm going to actually Control F, there's the robot, physics of failure. And it's going to show up in the margin and this weird little white text is going to be highlighted. And I'm going to go, this person doesn't actually have it. They just put it in to reject.
Nobody wants to be catfished.
No.
I mean, it happens. And even if it's not tiny white font, which made me make a TikTok, by the way. I never thought I'd do TikTok, but that one made me make a TikTok.
Check it out.
I have had this argument with more hiring managers than I can count in 22 years. Writing a pretty resume is not an engineering trait. And hiring managers will come back and say, well, this person just stuffed their resume with keywords. I don't see anything about how they actually did the thing.
Right. Yep.
So keyword stuff at your peril, y'all. I mean, honestly, and nobody wants to hear that because they think, well, I can just run it through JobScan, or I can just stuff it in the margins, or I can do all these things. Well, then how do you explain my hiring managers who are basically holding me accountable and saying, Amy, you said I should talk to this person. The resume doesn't tell me that. You better have a good reason to put them in front of me.
So I've got two questions here. First of all, Anna Maddox, hello. I have not seen or heard from you in way too many years. I'm not even going to say because that's going to age us right out the door. But hello, my friend. So let's address Anna's question really quickly. How long should a resume be after 15 to 20 years in a particular field? I struggle with this because I've been working forever and a day, right? So my own resume is probably longer than it should be. But my take on it is you need it to be as long as it needs to be to tell your story and to have the information that is relevant on there. Right. But don't do this. I used to have this resume. This was back from my HSN days. And I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you guys. The first page started with the early years. 21 pages.
Oh, and wow.
This gentleman wrote on there how he had been fired and how he had seen a therapist as a result. And don't do this.
This is oversharing.
That's exactly like Brene Brown says, right? Like, filming your bikini wax is oversharing. We don't need that. That's not human connection.
Right.
So it's the same thing. So it's too much. Too much is too much. So I say, if you can get 3 or few pages, you're good. That's my take. 3 or few. What do you guys do?
How you organize it is as important as the content. Remember when you were in kindergarten and you learned to read by following along with your finger left to right. You were training your eyes to do what they don't naturally do. But when we skim, nobody taught us to do that. So we go back to our natural state of reading top to bottom. So what you put on that left side of the page is going to be the most important because it's what people are doing. And how you organize that and creating these digestible pieces, that's really, really important. I don't want to see things like interpersonal skills. Nobody uses that in a sentence, right? It's really only in a job description. Take the real estate on your page to not list everything you've ever done. Nobody cares that you filed in 1984. Like, we want to see, especially if you're not applying for a job that involves filing. So make sure that what you're putting on there, it has to pass the why do they care about this test. And if it takes 3 pages to tell them why you are a BA candidate that really needs a conversation and it's worth a conversation worth having, if it takes 3 pages or even 4 to tell that story effectively, make sure it's organized, use your real estate wisely, but tell your story. I would much rather have a longer resume that is content rich and relevant than a 1-page resume that looks like you just graduated from college and I'm trying to figure out what you've done for 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah, I think 2 to 3 pages for that many years makes sense. But to your point, Andi, like kind of that above the fold, like on LinkedIn before the see more button, if that's, nicely organized and has powerful language that is almost hook-like in nature, right? Because we're humans, like draw us in, make sure that language has, like, think about it like we were talking about your brand, your product, like, we buy and hire people that we like and trust. And if you can get my attention from the top to bottom, like you said, because we're scanning, 7 to 15 seconds, like hook me in, like get me excited, tell me a little story. And I believe in connection over qualifications because we're going to have to start training people. There are just not enough humans to backfill what we have going on. So let us in a little bit. Like, don't be afraid to talk about, who you are as a person and a professional, because we end up working together and you end up being my friend and, those types of things. So, but above the fold and kind of in that hook language is definitely impactful.
Yep.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions on this is people think they need to recreate a resume for every role they applied to, and that could not be further from the truth. I 1,000,000% recommend having a primary or main resume, so to speak. Maybe that's 6, 7, 8 pages. I don't care. That's literally a data dump of everything you've ever done, every award you've ever won, every accomplishment you've ever nailed. Then when you go to apply to a role, you take that main resume and you start whittling it down, and you make sure that the top half, like the ladies are saying, is really relevant. I personally love a good summary. I want to know, like, hey, I'm a senior engineer with, reliability experience running models on things that fly in space. Oh my gosh, I just fell in love with you a little bit, right? Because that's what I need. And then I want to see in the experience the actual context, where, when, and how you did it. That's what helps basically bolster that summary statement, which is what's going to get me forwarding your resume to my hiring manager. So you're not recreating it every single time, but you're just adjusting it to the audience. And this whole 1-page resume nonsense, nobody cares anymore because we're not taking them home from job fairs in big banker boxes. It mattered then because I would lose second pages and go, oh my gosh, I'm missing half of this guy's stuff. Yes. I'm looking at it on my screen. I can scroll all day long. I don't care.
Right.
Yes. So let me, I'm cognizant of time because you guys are all busy ladies. So a couple of things I want to just clarify for everybody who's watching. And we can maybe do a speed round. We'll kind of touch on these. I see a lot of folks saying, recruiters, stop requiring a degree. let me clarify for everybody and their brother and your children and your children's children and your, children 10 generations from now. Recruiters do not set criteria for the job. Everybody understand that? The hiring manager is the person typically, or the company may have a guideline or a policy, which I hate that word policy, but they may have one that says any job this level and above requires a degree, or jobs in this area require a degree. Now, I am all for people, if you're a physician, if you're a CPA, if you're an attorney, if you need, there are certain jobs that absolutely require a degree. No question about that. Not every job does. But let's stop blaming recruiters for the degree thing, because it is not their fault. It is not the recruiter's fault. Now,
say it louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, exactly. I coach recruiters on how to push back on hiring.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm the recruiter that is look at this person. They're amazing. I know they don't come from the traditional brick and mortar college, but they have done this years of experience, these references, these recommendations. So we are going to bat for you. But that goes back to applying. Don't be afraid to apply. Don't be a spammy applier. But, if you hit, say, more than a certain percentage, go for it, because applications are down and hiring managers are opening up they're being more willing to explore different talent. Now, I saw a post recently where a guy had emailed back and said we lowered our expectations, so now we're willing to look at you. And I don't even remember who the connection was, but she was like, what a horrible candidate experience. We declined you originally, but now we're desperate, so we're going to look at you again.
So I think where this whole degree thing went sideways was during the recession, when there were gazillion, not the pandemic, but the recession in the
2008, 11,
time frame, when there were so many people looking for jobs, and organizations had to find a way to rank people and create, the most qualified to the least qualified. So that degree became one of those qualifiers to say, okay, if all things are equal, all number of years experience, all of that is equal, what could be a differentiator? Because we're getting 5,000 resumes or 5,000 applicants for one job. So they created preferred and then minimum criteria. I'm all for it being a preferred criteria. That's great. Sure. But not a minimum criteria. But again, it is not the recruiter making that decision. So what we need to do, and this is what I spend a lot of time doing when I'm coaching TA teams and individuals, is teaching them how to push back on that hiring manager to get them to open their mind, like Anna said, is to understand that the degree is great, but in most cases, the degree is only showing someone's ability to stick with something. It's not necessarily their effectiveness in the role, their ability to do the job, to build relationships, or any of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And they were probably a different person 5 years ago. I'm the champion of the underdog always, but it's I don't know. It just drives me nuts. And then asking for GPA when it's 5 years of experience. Come on, really?
It's the saying, I've heard it before. Do you know what they call the medical school graduate who had 2.5?
A doctor?
Exactly.
Exactly. I think I might have to use that in one of my next intake meetings, Barbie. Yeah. I love it.
It doesn't matter. Another thing, and I actually got into kind of a back and forth with somebody about this. Again, somebody who's never been in recruiting, by the way. Because shocker. Might have been somebody's wife, but anyway. Because the term hiring manager. Yeah. Hiring manager is not the manager of the recruiters. This person kept saying the hiring manager is doing this, the hiring manager is doing that. No. A hiring manager in this context, when we use it, when recruiters say the hiring manager said X, the hiring manager wants X, it is the person to whom this new hire will report, or they're over the team where this person will be.
It's a decision maker.
The decision maker, but they're not in the recruiting space.
Right.
They are in marketing or sales or finance or HR or operations. They work in the function where the job will exist, right? It is not the manager of the recruiting team, because what's getting people all turned around is the whole like, recruiters need to post salaries. Why are recruiters wanting to offer $15 an hour for this? Why is the hiring manager saying that? It's not the recruiting team making these decisions.
Yeah.
It is the hiring manager. That is your potential new boss. Is making
recruiters receive orders, just like any other order that you would receive, with the details. Usually we're given some type of salary range. Occasionally hiring managers like to, mess with us and say, you know what, just see what they want. But all of that is beyond our scope of control. And I think because they are your front line, they're the face of the organization for you, it can become easy to then make them responsible for the hiring process. And so many times we're looking for a reason, why did this fall apart? And it becomes, well, the recruiter. But really and truly, their job is to, here is exactly what I'm looking for. You go find this person who meets all of this criteria.
Right. And so again,
I know we're at time, but I just want to throw one last thing out there. Okay.
Do it.
Good.
We're going to have to do another one of these.
We have to come back. So great recruiters are consultants and partners to their hiring managers. Yeah. And I learned this from one of my bosses at Microsoft, Michelle, who I just adore. She taught me so much. Good consulting often looks like bad customer service.
Love it.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's so true, right? Because you have to tell people things they don't want to hear.
Yep.
You have to push back on old, antiquated concepts, like a resume being one page. Yeah, that came from people literally not being able to physically carry 5,000 resumes out of a job fair. Well, job fairs don't happen that way anymore, right? It's all automated. So we, as society evolves, as technology evolves, as processes and organizations mature and evolve, so do hiring practices need to evolve, and our perceptions and the way we approach it needs to evolve. And I think the best thing we can do is have sessions like this where we're willing and open to answer any questions with truth, honesty, and actual experience, as well as helping to coach and train the people who are doing the interviewing and doing the recruiting, and helping to reframe things for those hiring managers so they can get out of their own way. Because far too often, one of the worst things I see a lot of hiring managers doing is, they want to throw it out to 10 agencies and post it internally. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You're creating your own competition. You're going to pay for the candidate, right? All that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that we, as experienced people, consultants, whether you're internal or external, can provide to help improve this entire experience. But we've got to get rid of the nonsense and the noise in order to do that, and focus on the root cause and not the symptoms. And so I want to just, honor everyone's time. We're at 1:03. We will, if everybody's game, we will schedule another one of these.
Yeah, I would love to.
Absolutely.
If there's specific topics you guys want us to really kind of narrow in on, happy to do that. I am so grateful for all of you. You're amazing in your own individual rights. As a collective, what an amazing force you guys are.
This was so
excited.
Fun.
I am inspired now to go open my own agency and just hire you guys.
You have to name it the A-Team.
That's right.
Amazing. What is this? Maybe we'll have like a recurring monthly session with the
I love it.
Yeah, with the A-Team.
Just remember our parting thoughts. If the only reason somebody is available to tell you how to find a job is because they don't have one, you should call somebody who has been in recruiting.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Anna, would you like to share a parting thought?
Parting thought is really just, keep testing things out and stay consistent, and get out of your comfort zone and reach out to people in a meaningful way, and start your marathon here on LinkedIn, because stick around and the miracles will happen.
True.
Love it.
Amy?
Yeah, I would just say there's no substitute for getting direct, clear guidance from people who work with or at the companies you want to work at. I cannot tell you how to get a job at IBM. I can give you some general ideas and some general guidance, but that is not a place I've been. So you may not want to listen to me, and run everything through the filter of your own personal experience, because what worked for me may not work for you, and vice versa.
Totally.
And for me, I think adding on to that, your intuition will guide you. Trust it. It's never wrong. Ever, ever, ever
So
wrong.
good.
And when you see something that doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, it's not right. And it might be right for someone else, but it may not be right for you. And
That's so good.
never question yourself when your gut's speaking, there's a reason for it. So ladies, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Great questions, great engagement. I'm super excited. We will definitely be doing this again. So have a wonderful rest of your week. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Everyone, thank you.
Bye.
All right. Let me